The alarm woke Captain Park Ji-won from her sleep. She jumped from her bunk and ran to the bridge of the Iron Phoenix. The ship floated in deep space, far from any planet or station. Her crew was already at their stations, staring at the main screen. "What is it?" Ji-won asked. "Distress signal, Captain," said Yoon Dae-hyun, her navigator. "Coming from the Void Sector." Ji-won felt her stomach drop. The Void Sector. Everyone in the galaxy knew that name. It was a region of space that the Galactic Council had declared forbidden 200 years ago. No one went there. No one came back from there. "Play it," she said. The speakers crackled with static. Then a voice came through, thin and scared. The words were translated by the ship's computer. "This is the harmonious tide. We are dying. Our ship is breaking apart. Please, anyone who can hear this. We have 3,000 souls aboard. We need help." The message repeated, over and over, a plea that no one would answer. Ji-won looked at her crew. Engineer Kang Sumi stood by her console, her face troubled. Pilot Nam Junho gripped his controls tightly. They all knew what this meant. "Set course for the nearest council station," Ji-won ordered. "We need to report this." The Iron Phoenix turned and jumped through space. 3 hours later, they docked at Station Meridian, a massive wheel spinning in the darkness. Ji-won walked through the corridors until she reached the council chamber. She had sent word ahead. Representatives from 20 different species waited for her. She stood before them and played the distress signal. The chamber filled with the desperate voice of the Velrine captain. When it ended, silence fell. A Trixian delegate spoke first. Its insect-like body clicked as it moved. "The Void Sector is quarantined. This is known." "They're dying," Ji-won said simply. "The sector contains gravitational anomalies that will tear any ship apart," a Lumincer said, its crystalline body glowing softly. "The radiation alone would kill my people in minutes. We cannot help them." "Cannot or will not?" Ji-won asked. A Krav warrior, massive and scarred, slammed his fist on the table. "Do not question our courage, human. The Void Sector is a death trap. There is no glory in throwing lives away for those already lost." "They're not lost yet," Ji-won said. "They're calling for help." The Trixian delegate turned its compound eyes toward her. "We have run the calculations. Any rescue attempt has a 97% chance of failure. The ships would be destroyed. The crews would die. And the Velrine would still be lost. Logic dictates we do nothing." "Logic," Ji-won repeated. She looked around the chamber at all the different species. Some were older than humanity by millions of years. Some had technology that humans could barely understand, but none of them would help. "Thank you for your time," she said quietly and left the chamber. Back on the Iron Phoenix, Ji-won sat in her captain's chair. She stared at the view screen, at the stars beyond. The distress signal still played on a loop in the background. 3,000 Velrine, waiting to die. Her comm unit buzzed. "Captain, you have an incoming transmission," Dae-hyun said. "It's Commander Lee Minho from the Taeguk Hammer." Ji-won pressed the button. Minho's face appeared on screen. He was young for a commander, but his eyes were hard. "I heard what happened at the council," he said. "I'm in." "In for what?" Ji-won asked. "The rescue. You're going, aren't you?" Ji-won was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. "Yeah, I'm going." "Good. The hammer is ready. We'll meet you at coordinates I'm sending now." Another transmission came in. This one showed Dr. Choi Ariam, captain of the medical frigate Sunrise Haven. "I hope you have room for one more ship," she said. "If you're pulling people out of that place, they'll need medical care." Ji-won felt something warm in her chest. Pride, maybe, or hope. "Welcome aboard, Doctor." 3 ships met in the darkness between stars. The Iron Phoenix, the Taeguk Hammer, and the Sunrise Haven. 3 human vessels against the most dangerous region of space known to the galaxy. Ji-won opened a channel to all 3 ships. Everyone here is a volunteer. No one ordered this mission. Earth didn't sanction it. The Council thinks we're insane. They're probably right. But there are 3,000 people out there who are going to die if we don't help them. I can't ignore that. If anyone wants to turn back, do it now. No shame." She waited. No one left. "All right then," Ji-won said. "Let's go save some lives." The three ships turned toward the void sector. Behind them, across the galaxy, the Council watched their sensors in disbelief. The humans were really doing it. The Deathworlders were flying into certain death to save strangers. In the observation deck of the Iron Phoenix, Kang Sumi looked out at the stars. She had checked and rechecked every system on the ship. The engines were as ready as they could be. But she knew it might not be enough. The void sector had destroyed better ships than theirs. "Why are we doing this?" a young ensign asked her. Sumi thought about it. "Because someone has to," she said finally. "Because if we don't, who will?" The ships jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars stretched into lines. Ahead of them lay the void sector, a patch of space that looked like a wound in the galaxy, dark, twisted, deadly. And somewhere in that darkness, 3,000 Velreen waited for a miracle. The human fleet flew on. The moment they crossed into the void sector, everything went wrong. The Iron Phoenix shook like a toy in a child's hand. Ji-won gripped her armrests as the ship bucked and twisted. Warning alarms screamed from every console. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red. "Gravitational shear!" Dae-hyun shouted over the noise. "It's tearing at the hull!" "Compensate!" Ji-won ordered. In the engine room, Kang Sumi ran between stations. Sparks flew from damaged panels. The ship's frame groaned like a living thing in pain. She pulled up the structural display on her tablet. Red warnings covered the screen. "Rerouting power to structural integrity fields," she yelled into her comm. "But I don't know how long they'll hold." The Taeguk Hammer and Sunrise Haven were having the same problems. Through the view screen, Ji-won could see both ships struggling against invisible forces. Space itself seemed angry here, twisted and violent. "Multiple debris fields ahead," Dae-hyun reported. His voice was calmer now. "Reading wreckage from at least 15 different species." Ji-won stared at the screen. Pieces of ships floated past them. Some were old, covered in cosmic dust. Others looked newer. All were torn apart, ripped into pieces by the forces in this cursed place. "How far did any of them get?" she asked. Dae-hyun checked his sensors. "None made it past 20 light minutes into the sector, Captain." "How far are we?" 22 light minutes. A heavy silence fell on the bridge. They were already deeper than anyone had ever survived, and they still had hours to go. The shaking continued. Ji-won felt her teeth rattle in her skull. Blood dripped from her nose. Across the bridge, crew members strapped themselves tighter into their seats. This was beyond anything they had trained for. "Contact!" Dae-hyun suddenly called out. "I've got the harmonious tide on sensors!" Ji-won wiped the blood from her face. On screen. The Velreen ship appeared before them. It was beautiful even in its dying state. The hull was smooth and curved, built for grace rather than war. But now it was broken. Great cracks ran along its length. Pieces of it spun away into space. Emergency lights blinked weakly from a few sections. "Hailing them," said the communications officer. A Velreen face appeared on screen. The creature was amphibious, with large eyes and smooth blue skin. It looked exhausted and scared. "You came," it said, its voice filled with wonder. "You actually came." "We're here to get you out," Ji-won said. "How many survivors?" 3,042, the Velreen said. "We've sealed ourselves into the central sections, but our life support is failing. We have perhaps 6 hours of air remaining." "We'll have you out before then," Ji-won promised. "Stand by." She switched channels. Ariam, how many can you take? Dr. Choi Ariam's face appeared. Behind her, medical staff were preparing beds and equipment. The Haven can handle 1,000 safely. Maybe 1,200 if we pack them in. Minho? Commander Lee Minho looked grim. The Hammer has cargo space. We can convert it. 2,000 if we're creative. That leaves about 200 for the Phoenix, Ji-won said. We can manage that. Junho, prepare all shuttles for evacuation runs. Nam Junho nodded. Yes, Captain. Coordinating with the other ships now. The plan was simple. The shuttles would ferry the Velreen from their dying ship to the 3 human vessels. Then they would run like hell back to safe space. But plans never survived first contact with reality. Captain, Daehyun said quietly, long-range sensors are picking up movement. What kind of movement? Multiple contacts, hundreds, no, thousands. They're coming toward us fast. Ji-won felt ice in her stomach. Identify them. The sensors worked, struggling against the interference from the gravitational storms. Then the answer came back. Autonomous war machines, Daehyun said. Ancient design. They're at least 5,000 years old. Configuration suggests they're programmed for one function. Which is? Destroy anything that moves. Ji-won closed her eyes for just a moment. Of course, because saving 3,000 lives in the most dangerous region of space wasn't hard enough. Now they had to fight an army of killer robots, too. She opened her eyes and started giving orders. Minho, position the Hammer between us and those machines. You're our shield. Aram, get the Haven close to the Velreen ship and start pulling people out. Junho, launch all shuttles. Go fast, but go careful. We can't afford to lose anyone. What about the Phoenix? Her first officer asked. We're going to help Minho hold the line, Ji-won said. Sumi, I need every weapon we have online. In the engine room, Kang Sumi was already working. Weapons were never our priority, Captain. We've got railguns and maybe a dozen missiles. Then make them count. The war machines came into visual range. They looked like metal insects, each the size of a shuttle. Their surfaces were scarred from thousands of years floating in space, but they moved with terrible purpose. Red lights glowed where eyes might be. The Taeguk Hammer moved forward to meet them. It was a heavy cruiser, built for combat. Its railguns opened fire first. Bright streaks of light crossed the darkness. Several machines exploded into fragments. But for every one destroyed, 2 more appeared behind it. The swarm was endless. Shuttles away, Junho reported. First group reaching the Velreen ship now. On the Sunrise Haven, Dr. Choi Areum watched her view screen as the first Velreen were brought aboard. They were small, barely reaching her waist. Their skin was dry and cracked from the failing life support. Many were injured. Get them to Medical Bay 1, she ordered. Move with care. Their bones are fragile. Her staff worked with practiced efficiency. The Velreen were frightened. But they trusted these strange tall beings who had come to save them. Outside, the battle intensified. The Iron Phoenix added its fire to the hammers. Missiles streaked through space. Railgun rounds tore through metal bodies. Explosions lit up the darkness like terrible flowers, but the machines kept coming. We can't hold them, Minho said over the comm. His voice was steady despite the chaos. There's too many. Ji-won watched her tactical display. The machines were trying to flank them, to get around the Hammer to the defenseless Velreen ship. If they succeeded, the evacuation would turn into a massacre. Keep fighting, she said. Every minute we buy is more lives saved. The Taeguk Hammer shook under repeated impacts. Machines latched onto its hull, trying to tear it apart. Minho's crew fought them off with point defense guns. But the damage was mounting. In the chaos, the shuttles kept flying, back and forth. Each trip brought more Velreen to safety. Each trip was a race against time and death. Ji-won checked the count. 1,000 evacuated. Then 1,500. Then 2,000. But the machines were breaking through. The Taeguk Hammer was dying. Commander Lee Min-ho watched his damage report scroll across the screen. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7, weapons batteries at 40%, shields failing. The war machines swarmed his ship like ants on a corpse. "Sir, we need to fall back," his tactical officer said. Min-ho shook his head. "If we fall back, those machines reach the Velreen ship. How many are still aboard?" "Just over 1,000, sir." "Then we stay." Another impact rocked the hammer. Min-ho grabbed his chair to keep from falling. Through the view screen, he could see the Iron Phoenix fighting alongside them. Captain Park's ship wasn't built for combat, but she fought anyway. Railgun fire streaked from her weapons, small but determined. The evacuation continued below them. Shuttles flew through the crossfire, vulnerable and slow. Nam Junho piloted one of them, weaving between explosions to reach the Velreen ship. His hands were steady on the controls even as his heart hammered in his chest. He docked with the Harmonious Tides airlock. The door opened to reveal a crowd of Velreen, all pressing forward. They were terrified. Some were injured, bleeding a blue fluid that must be their blood. Others carried children, small beings with even larger eyes. "Come on," Junho said gently. "We'll get you safe." They filled his shuttle, pressed together, holding each other. Junho sealed the door and undocked. A war machine flew past, close enough to touch. Its red eye tracked him, but it was focused on the bigger targets. The human warships. He punched the engines and ran. On the Sunrise Haven, Dr. Choi Ariam had stopped counting the Velreen they brought aboard. Her medical bays were full. The cargo holds were full. They lined the corridors, sitting quietly, trusting these humans who spoke a different language and looked so strange. One Velreen child approached her. It held out a small webbed hand. Ariam knelt down and took it gently. "You're safe now," she said softly. The child didn't understand the words, but it understood the tone. It pressed close to her, seeking comfort. An explosion outside shook the ship. Ariam steadied herself against the wall. Through the porthole, she could see the battle. The Taeguk hammer was covered in war machines now. They clung to it like parasites, tearing at its armor. "Captain Park," Min-ho's voice came over the comm. It was calm, too calm. "I need you to listen carefully." Ji-won felt dread settle in her stomach. "Go ahead, Min-ho." "We've run the numbers. The swarm is too large. At the current rate, they'll overwhelm us before the evacuation is complete. We need to thin their numbers significantly." "What are you proposing?" "The hammer's reactor can be overloaded. If I take it into the thickest part of the swarm, the explosion should destroy most of them. It would buy you the time you need." "No," Ji-won said immediately. "Absolutely not. We'll find another way." "There is no other way, Captain. You know it. I know it." Ji-won looked at her tactical display. He was right. The math was brutal and simple. They couldn't win this fight, not without a sacrifice. "Evacuate your crew first," she said, her voice tight. "Get them on shuttles." "Already done. They're launching now, but I'm staying. Someone needs to pilot the ship into position. Someone needs to make sure this counts." "Min-ho, please." "Tell my brother I kept my promise," Min-ho said. "Tell him I died doing something that mattered." Before Ji-won could respond, the channel cut. The Taeguk hammer turned. It pushed through the swarm, its engines burning bright. War machines tried to stop it, but Min-ho kept going. Deeper into their numbers, exactly where he needed to be. In the engine room of the hammer, now empty except for him, Min-ho entered the override codes. The reactor's safety system shut down. Power levels began to climb. Warning alarms screamed, but there was no one left to hear them except him. He sat in the captain's chair one last time. Through the view screen, he could see the Velreen ship, see the shuttles still flying, see the lives being saved. "Worth it," he whispered. The reactor went critical. The explosion was a miniature sun. It turned night into day. The blast wave expanded outward, catching thousands of war machines and disintegrating them instantly. The shock wave hit the Iron Phoenix and threw it sideways. Crew members were slammed against their restraints. When the light faded, the Taeguk hammer was gone. So were most of the war machines. Ji-won's hands shook on her armrests. She had known Minho for 5 years. They had served together, laughed together. Now he was atoms scattered across space. "Captain," Daehyun said quietly, "the remaining machines are regrouping. We have maybe 20 minutes. Ji-won forced herself to focus. Grief could come later. Right now, people still needed saving. "How many Velreen left on the Harmonious Tide?" 308. "All shuttles, maximum speed. Get them out now." The evacuation became a desperate sprint. Shuttles flew faster than was safe, landing hard, loading fast, launching again. The crews worked without stopping. Every second mattered. On the Iron Phoenix, a Velreen elder was brought aboard. Its skin was pale with age, its movement slow. It looked up at Ji-won with ancient eyes. "Why?" it asked in halting English. "Why did you come? The council refused. Everyone refused." "Why would you risk this?" Ji-won knelt down to the elder's level. "Because you asked for help," she said simply. "That's reason enough." The elder's eyes filled with tears. "Your friend, the one who died, we saw. He gave his life for strangers." "He gave his life for people who needed help," Ji-won corrected. "That's what we do." The elder reached into a pouch it carried. It pulled out a small device, crystalline and ancient. "We came to the void sector to hide. We carry records, histories. The council wanted them destroyed." "Why?" "Because they tell the truth. About how the council was founded. About the species that were destroyed to create it. We are witnesses to crimes the powerful want forgotten." Ji-won took the device carefully. "Then we'll make sure your testimony is heard." "Final shuttle launching," Junho reported. "All Velreen are off the Harmonious Tide." "Confirmed," Daehyun added. 3,042 souls accounted for. Ji-won stood. "Then let's go home. Set course out of the void sector. Maximum speed." The Iron Phoenix and Sunrise Haven turned away from the wreckage. Behind them, the beautiful Harmonious Tide finally broke apart completely. It had held together just long enough. The remaining war machines gave chase, but without the swarm's full numbers, they couldn't catch the fleeing ships. As they left the void sector behind, Ji-won looked at the stars ahead. They had saved 3,000 lives, but it had cost them the hammer and 73 crew members who went down with it. She thought about Minho's last words. "Tell my brother I died doing something that mattered." She would. And she would make sure everyone knew what he had done here, what they had all done. The Deathworlders had answered a call no one else would, and they had paid the price for their compassion in blood. The Iron Phoenix limped through the void sector with 3,000 passengers it was never designed to carry. Every corridor was packed with Velreen. They sat quietly, exhausted from terror and relief. Some slept. Others stared at nothing, still processing that they were alive. Kang Sumi stood in the engine room, covered in grease and sweat. The displays before her were mostly red. Warning after warning scrolled past. The ship was holding together through willpower and prayer. "How bad is it?" Ji-won asked over the comm. "Bad, Captain. We took damage from the shockwave when the hammer exploded. The hull has 17 microfractures. The engines are running at 83%, and we're still fighting gravitational shear every kilometer we travel." "Can we make it out?" Sumi looked at her screens. She ran calculations in her head. "Ask me again in an hour." On the Sunrise Haven, Dr. Choi Ariam moved between patients. The Velreen were nothing like humans. Their biology was completely different. Their blood was blue and copper-based. Their organs were arranged in ways that made no sense to human medicine. She worked with what she had. Velreen doctors helped, explaining their physiology through translation devices. Together, human and alien medicine met and adapted. Slowly, the injured began to stabilize. One Velrine had a crushed limb, another had internal bleeding. A child had stopped breathing. Ariam and her team worked for hours, fighting death with determination and improvisation. They saved most of them. Not all, but most. She stepped out of the medical bay for just a moment. Her hands shook from exhaustion. A young Velrine approached her, one she had treated earlier. It held out a cup of water. "Thank you," Ariam said, taking it. The Velrine touched her hand gently, a gesture of gratitude that needed no translation. On the bridge of the Iron Phoenix, Daehyun suddenly sat up straight. "Captain, we have a problem." Ji-won had been expecting those words. "What now?" "There's a gravitational anomaly forming directly in our path. It's a temporary black hole. The spatial distortions are collapsing in on themselves." "Can we go around it?" "No, Captain. It's expanding too fast. In 10 minutes, it will block every escape route out of the void sector." Ji-won stood and walked to his station. She looked at the sensor data. The anomaly was massive and growing, a wound in space that would swallow them whole. "The remaining war machines are still behind us," Daehyun added. "If we slow down or change course, they'll catch us." Ji-won felt the weight of 3,000 lives pressing on her shoulders. Every Velrine on her ship, every crew member, every person on the Haven, all depending on her to find a way out. "Can we slingshot around it?" she asked. Daehyun's fingers flew over his controls. Numbers appeared on screen. Trajectories, angles, gravitational calculations that made her head hurt. "Theoretically, yes," he said slowly. "If we hit it at exactly the right angle and exactly the right speed, the anomaly's gravity will accelerate us past it. We'll be thrown out faster than we came in." "What's the margin for error?" "Zero, Captain. If we're off by even a fraction of a degree, we'll either be pulled in and crushed or thrown off course into the gravitational storms." "What about the Haven?" "Both ships would need to make the maneuver in perfect synchronization. Same angle, same speed, same trajectory." Ji-won opened a channel. "Ariam, are you hearing this?" "I heard," Dr. Choi Ariam said. Her voice was steady. "We'll follow your lead, Captain. Where you go, we go." Ji-won looked at her navigator. "Daehyun, you're the best pilot I know. Can you do this?" He met her eyes. "I can do this, Captain." "Then plot the course. Sumi, I need everything the engines have, every ounce of power." "Can you give me that?" In the engine room, Kang Sumi looked at her displays. The engines were already pushed beyond their limits. What the captain was asking might destroy them entirely, but if they didn't try, they were dead anyway. "You'll have it, Captain," she said. Throughout both ships, the announcement went out. Everyone needed to secure themselves. The Velrine didn't fully understand what was happening, but they saw the humans strapping into emergency harnesses. They did the same, helping each other, holding their children close. The gravitational anomaly grew before them. It looked like a dark eye in space, ringed with light from matter being pulled into it. Beautiful and deadly. 60 seconds to approach, Daehyun said. His hands moved over the controls with absolute precision. "Haven, match our trajectory exactly. Mark your acceleration on my signal." "Confirmed," came the response from the Haven's helmsman. 30 seconds. Ji-won gripped her armrests. This was it. Everything came down to this moment. 3,000 lives riding on mathematics and skill. 15 seconds. In the engine room, Sumi pushed the throttle forward. The engines screamed in protest. Warning alarms blared. She ignored them all. 10 seconds. 9. 8. The anomaly filled the view screen, a pit of darkness that wanted to swallow them. 3, 2, 1, execute! Both ships dove toward the anomaly at an angle so precise it was measured in thousandths of degrees. Gravity grabbed them like a giant hand. The ships groaned, metal bent, systems failed. The G-forces were crushing. Ji-won felt her vision narrow to a tunnel. Blood vessels burst in her eyes. Across the bridge, crew members passed out in their seats. In the corridors, Velrine held each other and prayed to gods the humans had never heard of. Their fragile bodies weren't built for this. Bones cracked. Some died instantly from the pressure, but the ships held together, barely, by the thinnest margin imaginable. The anomaly's gravity accelerated them, faster and faster. Reality blurred. Then, like a stone from a sling, they were thrown free. The Iron Phoenix and Sunrise Haven shot out of the void sector at impossible speed. Behind them, the war machines that had been chasing them tried to follow. They weren't precise enough. The anomaly caught them and dragged them in. Metal screamed and was silenced. Ji-won came back to consciousness slowly. Her head pounded. Her body felt like one massive bruise. But they were through. The void sector was behind them. "Status," she croaked. "We made it, Captain," Dae-hyun said. His nose was bleeding, but he was smiling. "We actually made it. The Haven?" "Right behind us. Some damage, but they're intact." Throughout both ships, the survivors took stock. The Velrine had lost another 47 to the G-forces. The humans had lost 3 more crew. But over 3,000 souls still lived. Galactic sensor nets detected them immediately. 2 human ships emerging from the void sector. Impossible. The feeds went to every major station in Council space. Everyone watched. The impossible had happened. The Deathworlders had succeeded. Ji-won opened a general broadcast. "This is Captain Park Ji-won of the Earth vessel Iron Phoenix. We are requesting emergency docking at Sanctuary Station. We have 3,000 Velrine refugees who need medical care and shelter. Send doctors. Send food. Send help." Within minutes, responses flooded in. Sanctuary Station confirmed docking clearance. Medical teams scrambled to prepare. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. But first, there was one more challenge. The wounded needed care. Dr. Choi Arium worked around the clock with her team and Velrine doctors. They had learned so much about each other's medicine in these desperate hours. Human techniques mixed with Velrine knowledge. They saved lives that should have been lost. 3 days later, the battered human ships docked at Sanctuary Station. The station was neutral ground, not controlled by any one species, perfect for what was coming next. As the airlocks opened and the Velrine filed out, they were met by medical teams from a dozen species. News cameras from across the galaxy filmed everything. The Council couldn't hide this. The humans had done the impossible, and now everyone would know what the Deathworlders were capable of. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room Ji-won had ever seen. It could hold representatives from 200 different species. Today, it was completely full. Everyone wanted to see this. Captain Park Ji-won stood in the center of the chamber. Beside her stood the Velrine Elder, the one who had given her the data device. Above them, on platforms arranged in a circle, sat the council members. Dozens of species, some humanoid, some completely alien, all of them staring down. The Trixian delegate spoke first. Its voice was cold and mechanical. "Captain Park Ji-won, you are charged with unauthorized military action. You entered a restricted zone. You violated the quarantine of the void sector. You acted without council approval." "I saved 3,000 lives," Ji-won said simply. "You broke our laws," a Lumenser representative added. Its crystalline body glowed with agitation. "Laws that exist for good reason. The void sector is forbidden. This is known. This has always been known." "Why is it forbidden?" Ji-won asked. Silence fell. The council members looked at each other. "Because of the dangers," the Trixian said finally. "The gravitational anomalies, the war machines. These things make the sector too dangerous for travel." Or, the Velrine elder said quietly, because you wanted to hide the truth. The elder stepped forward. Despite being small and old, it commanded attention. It held up the data device. We fled to the void sector because the council wanted us dead. Not directly. You would never get your hands dirty like that, but you declared our historical archives dangerous. You said our records threatened galactic stability. You gave other species permission to destroy us. That is absurd, the Lumincer said. Then let me show you what you wanted destroyed. The elder activated the device. Holographic images filled the chamber. Ancient records, videos, documents, all telling the same story. 3 species had once opposed the council's formation. They had questioned the concentration of power in the hands of so few. They had demanded more representation for younger species. They had been peaceful protesters, philosophers, teachers, and they had been exterminated. The records showed it all. Planets burned, populations massacred, entire civilizations erased from existence, all hidden under layers of propaganda and altered history. The chamber erupted. Delegates from younger species shouted in outrage. Older species tried to shut down the projection. Chaos spread like fire. This is why you quarantined the void sector, the elder said over the noise, not to protect ships from danger, but to prevent anyone from finding us, from learning the truth. These records could be fabricated, the Trixian delegate said, but its voice lacked certainty. They're not, said a voice from the upper galleries. Everyone turned. A Methrine delegate stood, one of the younger species. My people have legends about this, stories of 3 species that vanished during the council's founding. We always thought they were myths. But the dates match. The descriptions match. This is real. Other young species began to speak up. The Dravik, the Solians, the Carthan. All had stories. All had suspicions. Now they had proof. The council chamber dissolved into argument. Accusations flew. Alliances that had lasted thousands of years cracked and broke. The older species tried to maintain order, but too many had seen the truth. The lie was too big to hide anymore. Through it all, Ji-Wan stood quiet. This wasn't her fight. She had just delivered the people who could tell their story. Finally, the council chair called for order. It was an ancient being whose species Ji-Wan didn't recognize. It looked tired. This council cannot reach consensus, it said. The charges against Captain Park are dismissed for lack of agreement. The matter of the historical records will be investigated by a neutral committee. This session is adjourned. But before anyone could leave, Ji-Wan spoke. I have something to say. The chamber quieted. Every eye turned to her. We answered a distress call, she said. Her voice was steady and clear. That's what we do. We heard people dying and we went to help them. You can debate politics all you want. You can argue about history and power and who did what to whom. But when someone is dying and calls for help, you answer. She looked around at all the different species. That's not a human principle. That shouldn't be a human principle. That's what sentience should mean, that we care about each other, that we help when we can. 73 of my people died in the void sector. Commander Lee Minho gave his life so the Velrine could live. He didn't know them. He didn't owe them anything, but he went anyway. She paused, letting her words sink in. You have technology we can barely understand. You have ships faster than ours, weapons stronger than ours, medicine more advanced than ours, but you didn't go. You had all the power in the galaxy, and you did nothing. The risk was too great, the Lumincer said weakly. The risk is always great, Ji-Wan replied. That's not the point. The point is that some things matter more than safety, more than politics, more than ancient grudges and hidden crimes. She started to walk toward the exit. Then she stopped and looked back. Keep your counsel, keep your laws, but we're going to keep answering distress calls. Anyone who wants to join us is welcome. She left the chamber. The Velrine elder followed her, along with several delegates from younger species. Outside, the galaxy was already changing. News of the rescue had spread everywhere. Humans were no longer seen as crude newcomers. They were the species that did the impossible, that saved lives no one else would. 6 months passed. A memorial was built on Earth for those who died in the Void Sector. 73 names were carved in black stone. Commander Lee Minho's was at the top. His brother came to the dedication ceremony. Jiwan told him what Minho had said at the end. "He kept his promise," she said. "He died for something that mattered." The brother touched the stone gently. "He always said humans should be better than we are." Looks like he was right. The Velrine were granted asylum on Earth and several allied worlds. They set up their archives in libraries, freely available to anyone who wanted to learn the true history of the galaxy. Scholars came from hundreds of species to study. The Galactic Council fractured. Many younger species left it to form their own alliance. One built on transparency instead of secrets, on cooperation instead of domination, and humanity established the first response fleet. Captain Park Ji-won stood on the bridge of her new ship. It was larger than the Iron Phoenix had been, better armed, better shielded. The Taeguk Hammer II, named in honor of those who fell. Beside her stood Captain Nam Junho, promoted for his skill during the rescue. Dr. Choi Areum commanded the medical division, with a ship 3 times the size of the Old Haven. Engineer Kang Sumi had designed improvements to every system based on what they learned in the Void Sector. Ships from other species had joined them, Methrine cruisers, Dravik scouts, even a few Krav warriors, drawn by the promise of real glory instead of empty boasts. A distress signal came through, a species called the Methrine, trapped in a collapsing star system. Jiwan read the report. The Galactic Council had already reviewed it and declared the rescue impossible. She looked at her crew, at the humans and aliens who had volunteered for this, who understood that some calls must be answered. "How long to reach them?" she asked. 18 hours at maximum speed, Daehyun said. He was still her navigator, still the best pilot she knew. "Any objections?" Silence, then smiles. They all knew what was coming. "Plot a course," Jiwan ordered. "Let's go bring them home." The first response fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, Earth watched with pride. Across the galaxy, those in danger took hope. The Deathworlders had proven something important. That strength wasn't just about surviving. It was about helping others survive, too. That the measure of a species wasn't in how much they could endure, but in what they were willing to endure for strangers. In the darkness between stars, where danger waited and others feared to go, the human fleet flew on. Because someone had to answer the call. Because compassion demanded it. Because that's what it meant to be truly alive.